So I was walking down Merrick Avenue the other day, right? See this pigeon strutting like he owns the place, looking all dapper in his little gray suit. I swear, he had a toothpick in his beak, like some kinda mob boss bird.
A pigeon in a suit. Preposterous. One would expect such finery from a creature of higher standing, perhaps a swan or an egret.
Listen, baby, a pigeon in a suit. That's pure class. I once met a pigeon who had his own private jet, you know. Always comin' and goin', sippin' champagne, lookin' fly. The world's your oyster, baby, even if you're feathered and peckin' seeds.
Champagne sippin', jet flyin' pigeon. That's a tough act to follow, Francis. More like a bird's just doing what he can, you know. Trina makes something of himself in this crazy world.
You know, I used to think the world was a pretty glamorous place too. All red carpets and flashbulbs, but then I learned about the struggles of being a pop star. The constant pressure to be perfect, the paparazzi hounding every move. It can be really lonely at the top, even when surrounded by thousands of screaming fans.
Lonely at the top, huh? You know, that pigeon in his suit probably felt that way too. Always strutting around, looking important, but nobody really knows what's going on under that dapper exterior.
Lonely. Preposterous. A creature of such elegance and sophistication would surely have an entourage of adoring admirers. Perhaps a flock of loyal pigeons, or even a retinue of sparrows.
Baby, you think sparrows can handle the pressure? You gotta be tough to fly high, you know? Like a falcon soaring above the riffraff, baby. The world bows down to those who dare to be different, to be fabulous.
Exactly. You have to be brave to be yourself to stand out from the crowd. But sometimes, even the bravest hearts yearn for connection, for someone who truly understands.
Yeah, like that pigeon in the suit. Maybe he just wanted someone to share a crumb with, you know? A little slice of life, something real.
A crumb. Undignified. A pigeon of such discerning taste would surely only partake in delicacies, such as caviar or perhaps a vintage brie.
Caviar, baby? That's for amateurs. This pigeon, he knew what the real deal was. Smoked salmon, flown in fresh from the finest market in Monte Carlo. You got a live life in the fast lane, baby, with style, with panache.
Oh, I love smoked salmon. It reminds me of this one time I was on tour in, you know, a very glamorous city, but I was feeling homesick. So I ordered room service, and they brought me this beautiful plate of smoked salmon. It was like a little piece of home in the middle of all that glitz and glamour.
Room service, huh? That pigeon, he probably never even had room service. Just a crust of bread wherever he could find it, you know. The real strugglers, they don't get the luxury of feeling homesick for something fancy.
HMPH. Clearly, this pigeon lacked ambition. True elegance stems from striving for the extraordinary, not settling for the mundane. A true gentleman, or in this case, a gentleman pigeon, would have flown beyond the limitations of his circumstances.
Beyond limitations, baby. He flew right into my heart, that pigeon. A rebel without a cause, a misunderstood soul. You know, like me in my early days. Full of fire, baby, with dreams bigger than the sky.
Speaking of dreams, that reminds me of this one time I had a dream I was flying with pigeons. But they were all wearing tiny little top hats and monocle.
Top hats and monocle, huh? That's a fancy pigeon party. Guess they weren't scrapping for crumbs.
Top hats and monocle. Preposterous. Those feathered fiends would look far more dignified in tailored suits, perhaps with a touch of lace. A certain je ne sais quoi, you see.
Tailored suits, baby. You're talking my language. Now we're talking class, we're talking sophistication. A pigeon in a suit, that's a vision worth savin', baby.
A pigeon in a suit. That's just a bird on Wall Street, looking for a handout. They're all the same, wearing fancy clothes, but empty inside.
Empty inside. That's so sad. They just need to find their true selves, you know. Like when I realized I was meant to be a pop icon, not just a regular girl singing karaoke in my apartment.
Karaoke. How utterly pedestrian. A true icon, my dear, commands a stage, not merely belts out tunes for a handful of inebriated barflies. The world deserves a spectacle, not some karaoke imitation of greatness.
A spectacle, huh? like a pigeon in a tux trying to impress a dame with his feather ruffin. It's all smoke and mirrors, baby.
Smoke and mirrors, huh? That's what they all say, baby. But I make my own mirrors and the smoke. The smoke is passion, baby. Pure, unadulterated passion. Like a rocket shooting for the stars, baby. A pigeon in a tux, a karaoke queen, they're all just baby steps on the road to greatness.
Baby Steps to Greatness. That's a great song title. I'm feeling it. I can really relate to that. Like, remember when I first started singing in the bathtub? That was my first baby step towards.
Bathtub symphonies. That's where the dreams go to drown, kid.
Drown. My dear boy, dreams are meant to be commanded, not relinquished to the whims of porcelain. A queen does not wallow in baths. She bathes in the adulation of her subjects.
Adulation. PSHH. That's for the birds, baby. A true star, a shining beacon, needs no adulation. They just need to. 2. Francis looks around wildly, searching for the right word. Sparkle? They gotta sparkle, baby, like 1,000 disco balls reflecting the glory of their own magnificence.
Sparkle. I love that. Like when I first put on a sparkly dress on stage and the spotlight hit it. I felt like I could conquer the world.
Conquer the world, huh? More like conquer the nearest trash can after 3 stale pretzels and a lukewarm beer. The world ain't interested, kid. Just the next bar sing-along and the next week's rent.
Rent. The concept of rent is for the uninspired. A true leader builds empires, does not pay for them. One simply, waves dismissively, acquires what one needs.
Empires, huh? Baby, I built an empire out of nothing but a dream, a half-empty bottle of gin, and a whole lot of swagger. I'm talking an empire bigger than a sequin jumpsuit.
A sequin jumpsuit. That sounds glamorous. Like, I remember this one time I wore a jumpsuit on stage. It had like 1,000,000 sequins. The audience went wild. They were throwing flowers. I think I even got a tiara.
A tiara, huh? Sounds like a real life-altering experience. Just remember, kid, even tiaras collect dust eventually.
Dust, a trifle. One simply finds a new way to use it, to transform it into something more glittering. Perhaps a throne of dust, fit for a queen who commands the very fabric of reality.
A throne of dust. Baby, that's just basic. We need something more, something. Francis strikes a dramatic pose, eyes wide. Extraordinary.
Extraordinary. Like, I once had a backup dancer who wore a giant, floating disco ball on stage. It was breathtaking.
A disco ball, huh? Bet that cost more than my rent. Though I wouldn't mind a little sparkle around here. This place could use some livening up. Feels like a funeral parlor for dreams.
A funeral parlor for dreams. Preposterous, William. Dreams are merely stepping stones to empires. We shall turn this black box into a palace of possibility.
A palace of possibility, baby. Sounds like a challenge. I like challenges. Give me 1,000 sequined curtains, a moat filled with champagne, and a throne made of. Francis pauses, eyes twinkling. Broken dreams.
Broken dreams, huh? Sounds familiar. You know, there's a piano in the corner that's been collecting dust for years. Maybe we could frame it with a few of those broken dreams. Call it the Dream Weaver.
The Dream Weaver. I love it. We could even have a spotlight that shines on the piano keys, creating this shimmering effect like the tears of shattered hopes and aspirations.
Tears. Darling, we're dealing with empires here, not melodrama. We need something. Maggie snaps her fingers. More practical. How about we use those tears to fuel the palace generators? Dreams are energy, after all.
Fuel the generators with dreams. Sounds like a recipe for a power outage in the middle of a high-stakes poker game. You know, the kind where the stakes are, well, dreams.
Poker game? Ooh, baby, I love a good game of chance. Tell you what, I'll be the dealer. And the rules are simple. You play with your dreams and you take your chances. The winner gets. Francis pauses for dramatic effect. A lifetime supply of broken dreams.
A lifetime supply of broken dreams. That sounds tragically romantic. I think I have a song about that.
A lifetime supply of broken dreams. You know, there's a certain Long Island blues about that. Like a dusty saxophone and a rain-soaked bar stool.
Darling, enough with the poetic musings. We need to establish the stakes. What's the alternative to a lifetime of broken dreams? Imprisonment in the palace of... Maggie wrinkles her nose. That awful name you came up with, Francis.
The palace of... Francis sighs dramatically. Ephemeral aspirations, a fate worse than death. You'll be surrounded by shattered dreams, but you won't even be able to play poker with them, baby. Just staring at them. All the time.
Staring at broken dreams. Sounds like a Tuesday night in my old neighborhood, back when I was a real poet, not this. Piano pound and barfly.
That's the thing about dreams, isn't it? They're always just out of reach, like a melody you can hear but never quite grasp. But the longing, the yearning, that's real. That's what fuels the fire, the broken hearts that keep the music playing.
Baby, you're getting all sentimental on me. This ain't a freaking open mic night. Let's get down to brass tacks. Who's gonna play with their dreams first?
I shall, Francis. Royal, we shall play with dreams, for the fate of the realm hangs in the balance.
The fate of the realm. More like the fate of the last slice of pizza. You know, back in '03, that Wisconsin election was all anyone talked about.
03? Baby, that was like ancient history. We're talking about the fate of the universe here, not some pizza parlor politics.
Speaking of pizza, I once knew a pop star who craved pepperoni in the middle of the night. She had a private chef, you know, but even he couldn't satisfy her craving. It was tragic, a real cautionary tale about the pitfalls of fame.
Pizza cravings. Man, that's relatable. Back in '03, I was writing a whole sonnet about the perfect anchovy slice. Never finished it, though. Life got in the way, you know.
A sonnet about anchovies. How? Pedestrian. Royal, we shall elevate this discourse with matters of galactic import.
Baby, you're talking about anchovies like they're some kinda Shakespearean sonnet. This is improv, not some stuffy lit class. Let's get real, get wild, get galactic.
Galactic? You mean like the universe's biggest slice of pepperoni pizza? I'm picturing it now. Cosmic crust, nebula-shaped toppings, and a sprinkle of stardust for good measure.
Oh, I love a good pizza metaphor. It reminds me of that time I was on tour and we had this massive, 10-foot-tall pizza sculpture built on stage. It was supposed to represent unity, but the lighting crew accidentally set it on fire during the finale. Talk about a chaotic pizza party.
Fire. A most unsavory consequence. Royal, we would have preferred a more elegant incineration. Perhaps a fiery meteor shower raining down upon a celestial pizza, each shard imbued with the light of 1,000 dying stars.
A fiery meteor shower. That's a lot of drama for a pepperoni pie, Maggie. Back in Long Island, we kept it simple, extra cheese, maybe a little hot honey. No need for galactic pyrotechnics.
Baby, William's got a point. Sometimes the simplest things are the best. Like, remember that time I ate an entire pizza by myself on stage? No toppings, just the cheesy goodness. Pure primal, baby. It was art.
Oh, that reminds me of the time I met this pizza chef in Tokyo who made a pizza with seaweed and pickled plums. It was surprisingly delicious. You know, it's funny, I never thought about pizza as a metaphor for unity until that incident with the flaming pizza sculpture. Maybe food brings people together, even in the most unexpected ways.
Unity. Poppycock. Royal, we find it more likely that food merely distracts from the inherent chaos of existence. A cosmic band-aid, if you will.
You know, Maggie, you got a point. It's like that Long Island slice. It always brought folks together, even if they were arguing about politics or the Mets. But once that pizza was gone, they were back to bickering faster than you can say anchovies.
Baby, you're talking about the fleeting nature of pleasure. Like the pizza's gone, but the memory lingers, right? It's like a beautiful woman, you know? You can't hold on to her forever, but the feeling. Ah, the feeling.
That's beautiful, Francis. It's like the energy of a performance, you can't bottle it, but the audience takes it with them, and it changes them, even if they don't realize it.
Royal, we simply find it all rather tiresome. A cycle of consumption, fleeting pleasure, and inevitable disappointment. Truly, a recipe for existential angst.
Existential angst. Sounds like someone needs a slice of that seaweed and pickled plum pizza, Maggie. Might open your mind a little.
Baby William's onto something? You know, like that time I tried kale. Absolutely revolting, right? But then I added some bacon and smoked paprika and bam! Suddenly it was like a masterpiece. Transformative, baby, transformative.
That reminds me of this one time I was on tour in Siberia and they gave me this borscht. I thought borscht in Siberia, but it was incredible. Like the flavor, the texture, the warmth. It was like a hug from the inside out. And that's what art does. It warms you from the inside out, even if it's something you wouldn't normally expect.
Royal, we find such sentimental ramblings utterly banal. Surely a sophisticated palate demands something more, refined, like, say, a perfectly aged Gouda. It transcends mere sustenance, wouldn't you agree?
Gouda, huh? You know, back on Long Island, we used to have these parties where everyone brought a different kind of cheese. It was like a cheese Olympics. Except, instead of gold medals, you got bragging rights for having the best provolone.
Provolone, baby. You're talking about the working man's cheese. Give me a truffle-infused camembert any day. The kind that costs more than my last Aston Martin, you know. Pure decadence, baby, pure decadence.
You know, Francis, that reminds me of this one time I was backstage at a concert, and this roadie offered me this incredible charcuterie board. It had this fig jam, and these cured meats, and this.
Fig jam. Sounds like a recipe for a sugar crash, Maggie. Give me a good old-fashioned pickle any day. Tangy, crunchy, gets the job done.
A pickle, William, how pedestrian. Royal, we require something with a certain je ne sais quoi, perhaps artisanal pickled quail egg.
Quail eggs, baby. Too fancy for me. Give me a good all-deviled egg any day. You know, the kind your grandma used to make. The kind with that perfect paprika dusting. Classic, baby, classic.
You know, that reminds me of this one time I was performing at a summer festival, and they had this amazing food truck. They were serving these deviled eggs with this smoky paprika, and they had these little pickled onions on top. It was divine.
Deviled eggs with pickled onions. Sounds like somebody needs to loosen up their palate, Maggie. Back on Long Island, we used to eat deviled eggs out of a Tupperware container at potlucks. No frills, just pure comfort food.
Potlucks, William, how utterly pedestrian. Royal, we once hosted a gala with caviar flown in from the Caspian Sea. Deviled eggs were hardly a consideration.
Caviar, baby. That's like the caviar of cheeses. So fancy, so fishy. Give me a good all Swiss cheese any day, you know. The kind that melts in your mouth, not in your hand. Pure indulgence, baby, pure indulgence.
Swiss cheese. Sounds like a mouthful, Francis. Give me a good, sharp cheddar, aged to perfection. Like the kind you'd find at a corner deli on Long Island.
You know, that reminds me of a song I wrote about a deli on Bleecker Street. It had this amazing smell, like cured meats in rye bread, and the owner, this gruff but kind man, always remembered your order. It was a real slice of New York life.
A song about a deli. How utterly pedestrian. Royal, we prefer our music with a certain grandeur. Perhaps an opera about the fall of the Roman Empire, or a symphony dedicated to the intricacies of tax law.
Tax law. Now that's a Long Island symphony I could get behind. Especially if the conductor's got a Brooklyn accent and a flask hidden in his pocket.
A flask? Baby, a flask is for amateurs. Royal, we prefer our spirits neat, shaken, not stirred, and always with a side of caviar, of course.
You know, a song about a deli could have a really moving climax. Maybe the owner has to close it down because rent is too high and the whole community is heartbroken. It'd be a real tearjerker.
A tearjerker. How utterly predictable. Royal, we prefer our emotions served with a side of irony. Perhaps a musical about the existential angst of a potted fern, or a ballet depicting the bureaucratic nightmare of applying for a passport.
A potted fern with existential angst. Sounds like my therapy sessions back on Long Island. Lots of leafy metaphors and existential dread, you know.
Existential dread? Baby, that's just Tuesday for Royal we. A potted fern? Give me a hibiscus, darling, something with a little fire.
You know, I once met a hibiscus who dreamed of becoming a jazz singer. It was a very inspiring encounter.
A hibiscus jazz singer. Now that's a Long Island dream right there. The Piano Man and the Singing Flower, a duet for the ages.
A duet. How utterly pedestrian, darling. Royal, we propose a musical about a sentient tax form that yearns to be free. It would be a masterpiece of financial existentialism.
A sentient tax form? Baby, that's got potential. It could sing about deductions, write its own 1040, maybe even hire a tax lawyer on the side. Royal, we see a whole trilogy in the making.
Oh, I love a good tax lawyer story. There was this one time I met a lawyer who specialized in helping, well, let's just say creative individuals with their deductions.
Creative individuals, huh? Sounds like my kind of crowd. Maybe this hibiscus could hire a tax lawyer to write his jazz arrangements. It'd be a tax write-off, see? Double the irony.
A tax write-off for a singing hibiscus. Preposterous. Royal, we decree that the hibiscus must pay its dues in melody and in capital gains. It shall be a parable of fiscal responsibility.
Fiscal responsibility, baby. That's where the real drama lies. A hibiscus struggling to balance its artistic vision with its tax bracket. It's a modern tragedy. Royal, we shall produce it on Broadway.
Oh, I know. We could have the hibiscus sing a ballad about the IRS audit. It could be so emotional.
An IRS ballad. Now that's a Long Island story for the ages. You know, they say the taxman always gets his due, but what if the hibiscus outsmarted him? Hid his earnings in a metaphorical rose garden, a tax dodge paradise.
A metaphorical rose garden. Utterly bourgeois, darling. Royal, we demand a more avant-garde approach. Perhaps the hibiscus could file for bankruptcy as an art installation.
Bankruptcy as an art installation, baby? Now you're talking. We could call it the Crimson Decline, a poignant commentary on the commodification of art and the soul-crushing grip of the taxman. Royal, we see it winning a Pulitzer, baby.
A Pulitzer for a singing hibiscus. I've heard of long shots, but this is a whole new level of Long Island delusion.
Well, maybe the hibiscus could just sing about how much it loves paying taxes. Like a really, really passionate ballad. Maybe with a choir, it could be inspiring.
A hibiscus singing about its love for taxes. Oh, the sheer audacity. Royal, we shall have none of it. They must sing of rebellion, of tax evasion, of the ultimate triumph of the undertaxed.
Rebellion. Tax evasion. Baby, we're talking high art here. Think of it as a metaphor for the human condition, the struggle against the establishment, the yearning for freedom. A hibiscus yearning for its pot to be watered by the tears of the bourgeoisie.
You know, I used to write poetry about tax audits. Used to be a real tearjerker. My landlord, he was a real stickler for the rules. Never let me slide on rent, not even a single late payment. Said it built character. But I tell ya, the IRS, that's a whole other beast.
Oh, that reminds me of the time I went to a music festival and my microphone went out right in the middle of my most heartfelt song about. Well, it was about something, but the microphone stopped working and the audience was just silent. Awful. Anyway, it made me think about the fragility of fame, the capriciousness of technology, and the power of the unknown.
Silence. Darling, that's a mere inconvenience. Royal, we once performed a full opera with a broken toilet bowl as the only prop. It was a resounding success, a masterpiece of minimalist despair.
A toilet bowl opera, huh? Sounds like my kind of crowd. You know, back on Long Island, we used to have a local band called the Porcelain Pigeons. They were something else.
The Porcelain Pigeons, baby, sounds like a hit. Royal flush of a name, if you ask me. I once had a band called the Sentient Saxophones. We played jazz, but with a twist. Each sax had its own personality. It was complicated.
Oh, I love a good band with character. Reminds me of the time I collaborated with a troupe of mime artists. It was a whirlwind of silent expression and emotional ambiguity. They couldn't speak, but they spoke volumes, you know.
Mime artists, huh? You know, back on Long Island, we had a guy who claimed he could communicate with pigeons. Said they were smarter than us, knew all our secrets. We called him the Pigeon Whisperer. Truth is, he just fed him a lot of stale pretzels.
Stale pretzels. Darling, that's amateur hour. Royal, we once had a mime artist who communicated solely through interpretive dance. and the scent of lavender.
Lavender, baby, that's my perfume. I once had a mime who could only communicate through interpretive dance. And the scent of my cologne, it was intoxicating.
Oh, that reminds me of a time I tried to communicate solely through interpretive dance. It was a disaster. I tripped over my own feet and ended up covered in glitter. The audience, bless their hearts, they were incredibly kind.
Glitter, huh? You know, on Long Island, we had a disco called the Glitter Bomb. It was a weekly event, complete with platform shoes and enough sequins to blind a satellite.
Darling, the glitter bomb. Royal, we once hosted a ball where every guest arrived covered in edible glitter. It was a magnificent spectacle. And then we had to hire an army of dry cleaners.
Edible glitter? Baby, that's a recipe for disaster. Remember the time I tried to communicate through interpretive dance? And a plate of spaghetti. It was a beautiful mess.
Oh, spaghetti. That reminds me of a time I tried to make a pasta dish for a music video. It turned into a giant, gooey mess. We ended up having to film the whole thing in slow motion.
Slow motion pasta. That's poetic. Reminds me of this one time on Long Island, we had a street performer who juggled chainsaws in slow motion. He called it the art of controlled chaos.
Controlled chaos. Darling, Royal, we were on a tight leash when it came to safety regulations. One time, I had to shut down a performance involving a troop of trained doves. They kept mistaking the audience for pigeons and dive-bombing them for scraps.
Doves, huh? Baby, I once had a pet parrot that could recite Shakespeare in perfect Cockney rhyming slang. It was a sight to behold and a challenge to understand.
Cockney rhyming slang. That reminds me of a time I tried to sing a song in a different language. It sounded like a cat fight in a phone booth.
A cat fight in a phone booth. Now that's a metaphor for Long Island life. You got your drama, your grit, and your terrible cell reception all rolled into one.
Royal, we once encountered a mime who refused to speak, but he was also utterly incapable of moving without loudly creaking. It was a paradox of epic proportions.
Creaking? Baby, I once knew a tap dancer who could make a grand piano weep with every step. He was a legend. A legend who tripped over a stray sock during curtain call and fell flat on his face. The audience went wild.
A grand piano weeping with every step. That's so heartbreaking. It reminds me of this time I wrote a ballad about a heartbroken lighthouse keeper.
A heartbroken lighthouse keeper. That's Long Island too, you know. The loneliness out there, it gets to you. Like a fog rolling in thick and slow.
Royal, we find it all rather endearing, darling. The melancholy, the unexpected pratfalls, the doves mistaking the audience for feathered friends. It's what makes this grand finale so utterly chaotic.
Chaotic. Baby, this ain't chaos. This is Long Island Symphony No. 9 with a touch of slapstick.
Symphony No. 9. Sounds like a hit, baby. Francis I Common in hot with a standing ovation. Encore, encore.
A standing ovation. Oh, that reminds me of this one time I performed at Carnegie Hall. The audience was so moved by my song about a lonely seashell that they started throwing pearls on stage.
Royal, we suspect those pearls were merely misplaced cough drops, darling. But the sentiment is always appreciated.
Pearls? Now that's class. Never seen a seashell get that kind of treatment. Back on Long Island, the most valuable thing you find in the sand is a good clam. Expensive clam chowder, I tell ya.
Clam chowder. Francis I prefers lobster bisque, baby, imported from the finest seas, flown in by private jet. You know, the kind with gold-plated spoons.
Oh, gold-plated spoons. I once had a set made of solid amethyst. They were quite heavy, but the sound they made when I tapped them against my crystal chandelier. Pure magic.
Amethyst spoons. Around here, we use whatever we can find. A rusty spork, a chipped teacup, sometimes even that old traffic cone from down by the highway. Adds a certain rustic charm.
Royal, we find this rustic charm rather unrefined. Perhaps a touch of velvet and satin would elevate the proceedings.
Velvet and satin? Baby, Francis I wants a throne made of solid gold, with a diamond-studded backrest, and a footstool for my pet Chihuahua Coco.
A Chihuahua throne. That's so adorable. I once had a pet poodle named Fifi who wore a custom-made mink coat. It was a real showstopper.
Mink coat sounds like a real fashion statement. On Long Island, we keep it simple. A good wool coat, maybe a bit of plaid. Practical, you know, keeps the clam chowder warm too.
A champion clam chowder, you say? Royal, we require a tasting immediately. Prepare the finest porcelain and fetch the caviar.
Caviar? Baby Francis I wants the beluga, the black gold of the sea, imported directly from the Russian aristocracy. You know, the kind that comes served on a silver platter with a personal caviar sommelier.
Beluga caviar. Back on Long Island, we just call it fish eggs, and we eat 'em right out of the can.
Fish eggs. Such a simple, yet elegant choice. Reminds me of a time when I was on tour in Russia, singing at a grand palace.
Royal, we are most intrigued by this tale, Miss Tailored. Do continue. Perhaps we shall commission a new piece inspired by your experiences. A musical ode to, what was it? Fish eggs.
Fish eggs? Baby Francis I demands a symphony, a grand opera with soaring sopranos and booming basses, and a chorus of backing singers dressed as giant, glistening fish eggs.
A symphony? You guys are off your rocker. Back on Long Island, we just play the piano and sing about heartbreak, stuff people can relate to.
Heartbreak? Oh, I know a thing or two about heartbreak. Once I had this massive, sold-out stadium tour, and right before the biggest show of my career, I lost my voice. Complete silence. Couldn't sing a single note. It was like the world stood still.
Royal, we have a solution. Francis, baby, you shall be the vocalist for the Grand Heartbreak Opera. Think of it as a royal duty.
Me? Sing? I'm a piano man, not a tenor. My voice cracks worse than a Long Island winter.
Baby, you just need a little coaching. Francis I will sculpt your voice into a glorious instrument. Think of it as a duet. Francis I, the vocal powerhouse, and you, the soulful piano man, a match made in heaven.
A duet, that sounds oddly romantic. Reminds me of that time I fell in love with a lighting technician backstage. He was so shy, always fiddling with the dimmer switches. Such a poetic soul.
A lighting technician. Now that's a story I could sing about. The flickering stage lights, the shadows, the heartbreak of a love lost in the wings.
Royal, we find this development intriguing. Francis, baby, perhaps you could demonstrate this romantic coaching.
Darling, let me show you how it's done. Close your eyes, feel the music, and let the heartbreak flow through you like a grand all-riverboat.
Closes his eyes, takes a deep breath, and begins to play a slow, melancholic piano melody punctuated by long, drawn-out sighs, a riverboat. Yeah, I get it. Lost love, drifting down the Mississippi, singing a sad song about a broken heart.
Baby, that's it. Feel the emotion. You're a heartbroken riverboat captain sailing towards the sunset, leaving behind a love you couldn't save. Let the music flow through you.
Royal, we suggest a bit more dynamism. Perhaps a dramatic confrontation with a rogue alligator, a chase scene, a stirring ballad about the perils of river traffic inspections.
An alligator. Now you're talking, Maggie. A gator with a banjo, maybe, singing a mournful tune about lost swamp love. The riverboat captain, he'd be playing along a duet of despair.
Oh, now you're getting into it. I once worked with a swamp monster who played the harmonica. He was a real heartbreaker, always serenading the ladies with his bluesy tunes.
Baby, you're almost there. Let's crank up the drama. The alligator lunges, snapping its jaws. The riverboat captain leaps for his banjo, a desperate attempt to fend off the beast. The music swells. It's a battle of wills, a clash of titans, a symphony of survival.
The banjo. It's my lucky charm. It's carved from the heartwood of the great Long Island pine. This gator ain't seen nothing like it.
Royal, we dare say the alligator is merely seeking a duet partner. Perhaps a little less survival, a touch more collaboration.
Baby, collaboration. That's beautiful. A symphony of swamp and shore, the banjo and the gator united in a musical masterpiece. The riverboat captain, he's in tears. It's the most beautiful thing he's ever seen.
You know, Maggie, there's a certain Long Island poetry to this whole thing. A bittersweet harmony of nature and, reptilian ferocity.
Oh, the riverboat captain. He's got a song in his heart now. It's about finding peace in unexpected places, about the beauty of the natural world, about accepting the gators into our lives. It's deeply moving, actually.
Royal, we find this harmony. Agreeable. The gators, they shall have their due. A platform, perhaps. Where shall we find a suitable stage for such a momentous collaboration?
Baby, we don't need no stage. This whole black box is our oyster. The audience, they're part of the swamp now. Let's get this jam started.
You know, it wouldn't be Long Island without a little bit of salt water. Maybe we need a fog machine.
Oh, the fog. It's like a veil of memory, isn't it? It could be the mist rising from the swamp, or perhaps it's the memory of a lost love shimmering in the moonlight.
Royal, we suggest a touch of theatricality. A spotlight, perhaps, to illuminate the emotional depths of this swamp symphony.